NBA fans, welcome back to the NBA Playoff Banter podcast. He's Marshall. I'm Chris. And we're here to talk about Game 5. Last night, we'll kind of touch upon some things from Game 4, but last night, man, the Suns come out just on fire. I'm talking on fire. 14 of 19. I think they got up 37 to 21. Just looking like, all right, dude, we've lost some games. We're going to take over. And before you know it, Milwaukee was right back in the game. And it was a fun game down the stretch, no doubt. It did look like Milwaukee had control of it. It was just crazy stat after that first quarter. Sometime, I think it was late third quarter, 67 to 40. The Bucks had outscored them. Obviously, Holiday went off. A lot of people went off in this one. So we're going to break down Game 5. Like I said, we'll kind of mix and match a little from Game 4 as we're talking about these last two games. And then we're going to preview and predict Game 6 and Game 7 if there is a Game 7. Can Milwaukee do what some other teams in the finals have done? Just won 4 straight. It's not the easiest thing to do, that's for sure. You kind of think, man, the Suns really had a chance to win one of these games. Not both, but at least they had a chance to win both. But even just getting one of them. So we're going to talk it through, no doubt about it. If this is your first time listening to the NBA Playoff Banter podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope if you don't want to listen to this NBA podcast. You can find it under the platform of Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast, that Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, really across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And one more thing. If you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV. Plans start as low as $69.99 a month. Simple pricing, no hidden fees, no annual contract. You can stream it anywhere on any device. They have the cloud DVR available, of course. And if you sign up for the choice package and above, you get a free year of HBO Max. That's AT&T TV. Okay. Like I said, I mean, the Suns just started like gangbusters. I mean, once again, 74%, 14 of 19 is just ridiculous. Booker went off 11 points. But before you know it, Marshall, next thing you know, usually we're talking about this, off air just a second ago, and usually it takes a good 7, 8, 9 minutes to kind of whittle down and grind out, go on your run and that type of thing to kind of grind it out and get in the game. Next thing you know, like I said, 37 to 21. It's 42 to 39, and you're like, holy crap, that was quick. Connaughton or whatever his name is, he was 3 for 3 behind the arc real quick. Holiday was going off. It just surprised me how quick Milwaukee got back in the game. And sure, the Suns would push it, and get a 6-point lead or whatever, but it wasn't much, at half. That had to have put some kind of mental block in the Suns' head a little bit. Like, dude, you can't get a better start. And Marshall, when you look at, the shooting percentage of both sides, they shot the lights out. It came down to a couple defensive plays. But what were you thinking in the first quarter and then at half? And then even when we get in the third quarter, I'm looking at the score at the 5:42 mark, and it's 85 to 75. And the Bucks are just, they're just keeping it going. What'd you think in general? It really felt like this game was going to be a blowout in the first, 12 minutes.
Especially with how Phoenix had closed out like some of their other opponents. We talked about that, like the closeout versus the Lakers game, their other closeouts. They would just have a hot first quarter and keep their foot on their throat, and it wouldn't be a ball game. And when you were up 16 at home in a super important game, like, you had to feel as a Suns fan that you probably were sitting pretty good. And I don't think it was take the foot off the pedal mentality. We've seen that happen before. I don't think that the Phoenix Suns had that mindset, but something went massively wrong to get outscored by 19 points at home in a game where it's not a must win, but it's about as important a game as you can have, Chris. And the first thing that came to my mind really was just the benches. Like the only main time in NBA playoffs and finals games is when you really do use any type of rotation for the most part is the second quarter, because first quarter starters start, third quarter starters are going to start, fourth quarter they're probably going to get majority of it. So there's normally that one part of the second quarter where you're letting your guys rest. And obviously, I know rotations are different to some extent, but for whatever reason, whether it was the subs or it was all three of Milwaukee's players playing the best to win that quarter by 19 points going into halftime, they had to feel like, this is our game to win. Like, let's win this and go home, Chris, with a chance to win Game 6 on our home floor, which has been special for them all year. So yeah, to whatever speech was given at the end of the first quarter must have been a very colorful, non-PG speech, and it got relayed. And yeah, to win by 19, I mean, I could only imagine being a Phoenix Suns fan that game. You probably like go to get a beer after the first quarter, and you come back and sit down. As you said, you went to get a beer up 16. Now you're down. You're like, well, did I get lost? Am I drunk? Like what just happened? Like that. The math is not adding up, my friend.
Seriously, man. And like I said, that 67-40 since the first quarter, late in the third, that is just pure domination. 27 plus 27, basically. And game 5, 72.4% chance you're going to win the series if you win game 5. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with home court advantage too, right? Because, you get another home game for 7 if you need it. So, and when you lose that, all bets are off. And like I said, Holiday was hitting big shots left and right. Booker had it going on. At least he didn't play with 9 fouls last night. But even early in the fourth quarter, he had like 33 points, but the Bucks were still up by 10, 104-94. CP3 comes down, hits a 3, 108-100. You're like, okay, this is under 7-minute mark. You're like, okay, they're around. Then you look at the 3-minute mark, and CP3 hit another 3. That made it 117-110. You're like, man, it's only 3 minutes left. 7 points is, it's totally doable. And sure enough, it was definitely doable because Booker hit a 3. CP3 hit a bucket, and it's 120-119. Giannis missed 2 free throws. And you're thinking, all right, dude, this is it. And they bring down the ball, and I believe it was PJ Tucker, originally on Booker. And then Hall, they kind of came into the play and just stripped the ball right from him. Some people were like, oh, it's a foul. It's like, well, he's not shooting. At that point, he wasn't even dribbling. He wasn't really driving anymore either. So it was like, no, that's just 2 guys going for the ball. One guy ripped it out of his hand. One guy fell down. Definitely not a foul. But then Holiday dribbles down, looks like he's about to pull it out, kind of, and just let somebody follow him. All of a sudden, he sees Giannis streaking down the court. Giannis calls for it. Alley-oop dunk. That basically gave him enough cushion. Obviously, they made it interesting. Down the stretch, they missed some free throws, clearly. One of them missed so bad that Giannis was able to tip it back out, I think, to Middleton. Middleton even missed a free throw, but he ended up, getting the job done. But what'd you think, of that last possession? Kind of surprised that we talked about this off air too. CP3 didn't have his best stuff, and then in game 5 or 4, and then in game 5, the other stud Booker gets stripped in the clutch moments of the game. What'd you think of that? And then also the decision for Holiday to make that pass where, some people were like, hey, dude, you're the better free throw shooter. Pull it out, make somebody follow you. What'd you think of those 2 plays?
Yeah, it's tough for the Suns because, I mean, Paul and Booker have been their two best players all years. I mean, they've been their guys. And I mean, and you can't, it's not like Paul is, going to freeze under the big lights like the guys always perform. So it was just a really rare off night for a guy who, when he was a point guard in Oklahoma City a couple of years ago, had the best fourth quarter offense in the NBA. And if you look up the roster of teammates he had, it was not a pretty roster. So this is a dude who over time has done it over and over again. And he had just a rough game 4, and Booker gets stripped. I mean, we were talking about before the show started about the LeBron dunk compared to the LeBron block compared to the Giannis block. Just you mentioned that, Chris, it reminds me of the Iggy strip on LeBron. Like, sometimes it's the defensive plays that really are the catalyst of the games. Like, I know that we're in such an offensive driven league, but I mean, Iggy's strip on LeBron was huge, just like that strip last night. Like, sometimes it is that still those defensive plays, and you've named two guys in that sentence who are two of the better defenders in the league, especially PJ Tucker. And every team kind of has that one kind of blue collar grit guy, and you can say the dude was maybe over emotional, would say what you want, but as a coach, I'd love to have him, because I mean, even for the way he played Durant, he was literally doing as much as he could. Like, when that guy plays so defense on anyone, he brings full effort. But he's been that way his whole career. He was like that when he played for the Suns. He's one of those players where if he is on your team, he is a badass guy to have on your team. He's kind of like a Draymond or whatever, whoever the nastiest guy on your team is, or like a Beverly, but I'd say he's more likable than Beverly.
He doesn't look like he could. His frame doesn't look like he can keep up with these quick dudes either.
No, but he's just got that inner dog to him. Oh, hell, he had no business guarding KD, but he made KD work for every bucket he could get, and he was busting his ass. And that, so when you say those names, especially Booker, Tucker, it's like, well, there's no surprise. It's no shock that he was involved in a play where a defensive stop was made. And in regards to the going down the court, I think that's one of those things where if you believe in yourself, just you go with it. Now, if that was maybe a rookie point guard with the ball, or a post, or someone who's maybe not quite as skilled, like, yeah, you pull it out, look for free throws and play the weight game. But you're going down the court, and if you're gonna throw a lob pass to Giannis, like, you're gonna have to really butcher it or f it up for that pass not to get caught. So I mean, it's a pretty high percentage play. You got momentum, and you kind of went for the dagger there, because maybe you start to dribble out, and then you miss a free throw, maybe you get the ball stolen. Like, that's one of those things where it's really a gut call, and if he throws it up and does go off Giannis' fingertips, the media can rip him, but it didn't. And that's just like I said, a confident play made by a veteran player, and you're throwing up a lob pass to arguably the most athletic guy in the whole league. So even if he maybe doesn't dunk it, he'll probably catch it and maybe dribble it back out, or catch it and put a layup in, or something. The probability of a screw up there, Chris, it could occur, but it's a pretty small window with the players involved. So I had no issue with that. And I mean, just they were going for the easy points, because I've seen plenty of times where the dribbling out plan doesn't always work either. So that was a aggressive call, but one I would have, been good with, just with people involved.
Yeah, and there was no one in his face. Only Paul was even near Giannis. Giannis called for it. And The same reason why Giannis can't really shoot free throws is the same reason why he's going to catch that alley-oop, like you said. Yeah. Because he's gangly, he's a long dude, and it's not a finesse thing. You can't finesse the ball, but unless we count a finger roll as a finesse. But other than that, he's got that nice little left corner, baseline fade he's starting to get a little bit better at. But, yeah, I agree. I agree with this one, because there wasn't even a big center under the bucket or anything like that. And Middleton, went off, had 29 points. Holiday had a great game. I mean, this dude, he really stood up, hit some big threes, 27 and 13, had 3 steals. They got 4 threes from what's his toes?
Connaughton.
Connaughton? Is that how you say it? Connaughton?
Okay. Yeah, Connaughton, yeah.
And it seemed like a lot of those were like within the game, big buckets. And just look at the shooting percentage, though. 57.5 as a team. 50% from three-point land. I mean, these numbers are crazy. Only 11 turnovers. Now you could say 9 of 17, but that was mostly 4 of 11 from 9 of 17 from the free throw. But that was Giannis. But then you flip to the other side and you go, okay, well, what's the other side look like? 55% from the field, 68.4 from 3, 13 and 19 from 3. Maybe you should have taken more, I guess. I don't know. And then they only got to the line 11 times, but they hit 10 of them. And once again, we're talking turnovers, 8 turnovers. They had less turnovers. So it really did just come down to a couple of plays, and those couple of plays didn't go the way of the Phoenix Suns. And you could kind of say that. Different style of game, but game 4, just talking that a little bit, it was actually, as far as a lead, the Suns had the lead. Booker was going off again. That was kind of Middleton's go-off game. But even at the end of the third quarter, it was 82-76, and they had shrunk some of the lead at times, but they extended again. But with 6 minutes left, Suns were only up 2. Booker got his 5th foul sometime early in the 4th, and then I just thought it was an error. I was like, oh, okay. He must have only had 3 or 4, and next thing you know, it's like, should he be in the game? It was kind of crazy, but Holiday was struggling. Like I mentioned, he was struggling pretty bad. Like I said, the Booker thing, it was like, what's going on? But then the Suns, look at this, 3 minutes left, 95-94. Then it's 99-99 under 2. Giannis gets fouled twice, Marshall, and every time just his wanting to make the right play, it's like, dude, this is the time to be selfish. Put anything up and go to the free throw line. Don't pass. You got fouled. Don't pass. You already know you got fouled. Why you pass? You did it twice. That was so weird. I was like, why are you doing this, Giannis? Tell me this is not some sort of mental thing that you don't want to go to the free throw line. But he was doing better from the free throw line in that game. And then Middleton back-to-back shots, that block. I mean, how often do you see an alley-oop block where the guy catches the alley-oop too? I mean, it's one thing, Marshall, to block a pass or to nick a pass when it's going by. It's another thing to block the alley-oop once Ayton's caught it. That end one by Middleton, and that was it. But man, I mean, when you look at these 2 games, how in the hell did the Suns not walk away with one victory out of these 2 games?
Well, my prediction was pretty close because I really thought that the Suns would bounce back in game 4 because they've bounced back from almost every loss. And they were sitting there doing it, and you're up 9 in the 4th quarter on the road in probably the best home court in the NBA this playoffs. And you let it slip away because your quarterback just had a couple of turnovers, which he normally just doesn't do. And that's tough. I mean, but you really can't hammer Chris Paul, just like there's always those people that always hammer LeBron for God knows what reason. It's like, dude, I'm not going to get on here and say, well, God, Chris Paul, what the hell? Like, dude, Tiger Woods missed putts. Like, no one is perfect. So you can't really hammer the guy too much, Chris. I mean, yeah, he made mistakes, and I doubt that that's normally what he would give for his regular effort. But it'd be pretty comical, in my opinion, to really hammer Paul too much because this was your 1 in 100 game. It was very unfortunate timing, but the dude had a couple of mistakes. And to give the Bucks credit, their defense they did better. Like I guess Steven Jackson sent out this like video tweet that he'd been doing film with when he played in the league, and about how you got to force him. It was like to one way. Like I think it was forcing him right instead of his left. And like he talked about how in the first 2 games the Bucks were letting Chris Paul dribble either way, and he was killing it. And then I don't know, and I'm not saying that Steven Jackson knows more than the whole NBA, but he mentioned this video.
He was a damn good Steven Jackson. He was a damn good defender, though.
Oh, he was. Yeah, absolutely, yes. And for whatever reason,
don't throw anything in his directions either, or his friends.
No. But I'm just saying. You could say it's coincidence, or you could say maybe a video got leaked, or maybe he sent a text to someone. But for whatever reason, they did change up their defensive approach against Chris Paul, and it did work out to be more beneficial. And again, the dude had an off night, and again, you're up 9, and if you win that one, you can go home to clinch. Like, damn, that's tough. I will say, speaking of how these events have happened, and I've seen this, and Popovich comes to mind especially, and I'll tie this all together. But there's been, throughout the years, I've always normally had the NBA package, and there's been times where I've watched the Spurs play. They're up like 17 in a regular season game, and a team will hit a 3 on them, and Popovich will call a timeout because maybe there was like a poor defensive play, or they're on the road and like the guy made a big play and the crowd goes nuts, and like, boom, timeout. And at first when I was watching NBA, Chris, I was like, dude, you're up 14. Like, okay, I know the team made one big 3, but you're still up 14. But it was boom, instant timeout. And Steve Kerr's got pretty good about that too, and with the Warriors. And you realize that despite the leads that NBA can have, this really has become a game, especially with how important the threes are, Chris, to where you gotta really just be smart with your timeouts. And I mean, I'm not saying this whole thing is on Monte, but if you're a veteran coach and he's not been here, like, there's part of that blame's got to be on him, just because I feel like a coach like Spoelstra, who's been in the finals a ton, like it's almost like there should have been an extra timeout, or it feels like, part of me just feels like, just because the Bucks have had a couple of really huge quarters against the Suns, especially these past couple of games, like there's some little timeout bug or some substitution missing that Monte is not quite hitting. Like, the dude's, I mean, coach of the year voted by the players. Like, I'm not taking anything away from the season he's had, but I don't think a veteran coach would let this happen with having, like, especially that game 3 second quarter and last night, just like there's something, I just feel, Chris, that like dude, you gotta maybe burn another one or switch up the subs. Like, I think part of the blame's got to come on the coach, just because those guys, they're the one pulling all the cards and calling all the shots, and Monte is, for whatever reason, not been able to stop these runs, and some of that's got to fall on his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, we can't say the coach is going to stop the run, but yes, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. There are some coaches. There's some coaches that a minute into the game, they'll just say, no, shut this fucking thing down. Didn't we just have this conversation the last 2 days? You just let that happen to make a point, you know? And maybe even, what was their timeout scenario down the stretch? Did they have a timeout when Booker came down? Maybe if they did have an organized play, it would have been different. But then again, that sets your defense too. So it's a weird, but overall, I know what you're saying. And sometimes it's that second quarter, I think what you said was a good example of, it's not necessarily, they should have called a timeout, in the last minute or whatever. It is kind of like when the run's happening. I remember Phil Jackson, this mother effer, wouldn't ever call a timeout. It's just like, Phil, come on,
there's some coaches
dude.
that don't. Yeah.
Right. But, look at the 2 teams he had, too. So, it's a little different when you have the best teams in the league, like hands down, no one's going to touch it, and some of the best, most dominant players at their position. It's a little different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And he's
Jordan on the court was a coach himself, but
So, it's just a mental thing. But I see your point. It's kind of,
because it was 43
second quarter especially.
It was 43-24 last night, and then in game 3, it was 35-17. So again, this isn't all on him, but when in your last 2 quarters you've been beat by 18 and 19, like it's some type of substitution pattern. There's something clicking different, because in the first quarter Suns have been good. So, and I'm not a diehard Phoenix Suns fan that's watched other games like I would, like on the Wolves or me on Golden State. But clearly there's something missing in that second quarter, Chris, that's becoming
some of it's intensity too. I mean,
you're
looking around like, wow, they the first 12 minutes they were freaking clotheslining people, like they're ready to go, and all of a sudden you're like, where's it at? And some of it is sitting Chris Paul down too. That has been an issue when they've sat Chris Paul down. Well, you got to do that, obviously.
Well, true. Yeah, you got to give him minutes. Yeah.
Payne, when Paul didn't play that game or two, Payne went off. So can Payne step up more in those times? I don't know. It's an interesting point though. no doubt about it. And really, defense, sure, there was a lot of there was a fair amount of points scored last night in this NBA now. But the last two games, you're looking at 103 and 100. And to keep that squad down in the 100 and 103 range and grind it out type thing, that's what we got out of the games 3 and 4 more. That says something right there. I mean, last night it was those small defensive plays that we talked about, but to me, that to keep that club healthy, 100, and 103, that is really telling, and it says a lot, man. It says a whole lot. Devin Booker and Giannis are the first pair of players in NBA history to each score 40 points twice in a NBA Finals in general. Game 4 and Game 5, Booker, 42 and 40, and then Game 2, Game 3, 42 and 41. Kind of a fun little stat. I mean, scoring nowadays is a little bit, over the top, but it's still, they're the ones doing it. So that's really, that's why they stand out like that. Any other items from the last two games that you'd like to discuss before we get all up into this Game 6 and potentially Game 7?
No, I think we've hit it. There's just been a lot of key momentum swings. And actually, no, I'll just make one point. This whole podcast, we've kind of been talking about through the playoffs about how Milwaukee had Giannis taking turns of being their leader, or Middleton or Holiday, but it wasn't really all three together. You're really now seeing the best collective team effort of those three players all showing out. And I mean, Dan, you found a good time to do it, because it appeared honestly like Middleton's probably been the most consistent of all three. Now, Giannis clearly has had the more elite games, but Middleton, obviously Giannis was in too. Middleton's been solid all playoffs, and he's had a couple of 15-0 runs himself.
Right.
And Holiday's maybe kind of found his feet now too. And I mean,
and he has been defending the whole time. I'll say that.
Yes,
he's been really up and down on his shot, no doubt, but he's been defending his ass off.
And I think that's why my perception of, I truly thought when the series started, the Suns were the better team. That was assuming that you were not going to have all three of these guys playing to a high level. Because if that was the case, then you have a different gut feeling. So credit to them. I mean, you waited pretty much all playoffs, but now you found the best time for all of your boys to start showing up, and they are, and that explains why the series is where it is, Chris.
And this is a fun little stat before we get into a little bit more here. So Chris Middleton has 15 game tying or go-ahead shots in the fourth quarter or overtime this postseason. Right? Wow. He's tied with LeBron James, 2007, the most in a single playoffs in the last 25 years.
Wait, who was the guy you just said, Chris? Was it
Mr.
LeBron who? Oh, really?
In a year they didn't win the championship, so we got to find a way that he sucks.
With all those, okay, it's surprising. I didn't think I'd hear that name being said. Shocking.
And I remember when he scored 25 straight points and 29 of the last 31 against Detroit when he was with Cleveland that first time around. That's how he closed the game.
Yeah, I think you're making this up, man.
That didn't happen. Twitter didn't exist, dude, so that didn't happen. Here's another one. This is from a local media. He says, Booker's seventh foul not called on that finish. That was pretty funny. Here's a couple of stats, though, that kind of blow you away. This is through 4 games, okay? Rim attempts, including shooting falls drawn. 141 to 78 in favor of the Bucks, meaning they're getting to the rim, they're crashing hard. Another one, this is through game 4 as well. Suns were shooting 51%, Bucks were shooting 40 through 4. The Suns are the first team in NBA history to lose a finals game despite shooting better than 50% and holding their opponents below 42%. But the Bucks shot 19 more times, had 12 fewer turnovers, and 12 more offensive rebounds. So it's just kind of a collage of stuff. Yeah. Some of these stats like kind of stand out where you're like, oh wow. I mean, I kind of knew that was happening, but now that I see it in that perspective, you're like, holy shit. So, defensively, just gotta hone in more. I don't know what you do. Who's gonna, you can't really guard Giannis when he's on his thing. And then just defensive intensity and intensity the whole game, every last second. I think that's what the Suns are going to have to do. I'm just going to say it right now. I think the Suns will win Game 6.
And
I don't know why I'm confident, especially the last two games when they should have won one of them. And maybe they're going to get their ass kicked, which I could see that at home. But there's just something that tells me that it's not going to be a great game. They're going to jump on them and this time do what they did, throughout the Western Conference Final.
And I have nothing against Milwaukee. I've just been cheering for the Suns throughout the playoffs, but I think the journey comes to an end. I think that Milwaukee has been the best home team in the playoffs this year. That crowd has done all they can to energize the players. You now have momentum.
Just one loss, right? Atlanta? And Atlanta's a great road team, so you can't really – just one loss.
And – I mean, you got momentum. You're that place. I can't even imagine how many people are going to be outside that arena tomorrow. And the Suns. I mean, you're realizing now that they, and again, no one was expecting them to get there, and you're in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Like big picture as a fan, you gotta be happy as hell. Obviously, every Suns fan wants to win tomorrow, but I think you're starting to see just a little bit of kink in the armor. It took them this long. And props to them. Injuries, whatever, they're here. But I think you're maybe finally, Chris, seeing just a little bit of that inexperience because they do play a lot of really talented young players. And maybe that's just kicking in a little bit. Just a little bit. Like the Milwaukee's a more playoff veteran team. And maybe there's just that little bit of younger.
Together, they've gone through highs and lows.
Yes. And this Suns team was kind of a put together miracle piece this year. And, so we're waiting for these young but I mean, in a couple of years, we could easily be again talking about Cam Payne and Cam Johnson and Ayton and Booker. And here they are again, they went Atlanta went further than people thought. And the Suns went way further than people thought. But normally a team has to go through growing pains to win a title most of the time. And the Suns were getting pretty close to skipping that trend. And it still could happen, but I definitely think that Milwaukee celebrates tomorrow just because their home court. It's been incredible this year times 10, and I think tomorrow night's going to be even crazier. And just the fact that the Suns have been having these kind of one-quarter meltdowns, which has specifically been the second quarter for the last couple of games, I think that that's going to hit them again. And I don't think there's enough. I would love a Game 7. Game 7 is NBA Finals. You can't ask for anything better than that. But I think with the home crowd, I think that Milwaukee wraps this one up at home, and they get to celebrate a title for the first time in a long, long time.
So I got a question for you in a second, but in the back of your head now, because we knew no matter who wins this championship, we know there's going to be a segment of people that are going to put an asterisk on it. That's just how fucking Twitter is. It is what it is,
Yeah.
But obviously the Suns would have had a larger asterisk, if we're being honest, right? Not that you and I would have put the asterisk there, I'd say the majority of people wouldn't, but there's going to be people that do that. And obviously, we saw it every step of literally every round a star was out. And there is something to be said. I mean, the Lakers, they did get to 6 off of that. They were down 2-1 against them. And we talk about when it's time to close out, they really closed out, right? And they did. And then Denver, they looked phenomenal without Murray, but still they looked awesome. They treated Denver, how a team without your second best player is just like, all right, bye. We got to get rid of you. The Clippers series, though, Marshall, when literally, Kawhi didn't even play a minute. Whereas some of the, Murray didn't play a minute, but obviously LeBron and AD did minutes in games. And and that's the reason why I was looking at that 6, possibly 7, because it's like, man, to not have Kawhi and still get pushed to 6 is kind of like, damn. And in the back of my head, in the back of their heads, are they now going, man, these people are right? You know, the writing on the wall of we had this easy path here because of all these injuries, it starts to mess with you a little bit. And especially to have these 2 games, one of them for sure was winnable. You should be up 3-2. And in some ways, that's like, hey, dude, we're going to be just fine. We know what we got to do. But like you said, with the inexperience as a unit together, it is a little bit more shaky. Here's my question, though, for you. If the Suns do win Game 6, right, which I'm picking them to, who wins Game 7 then? Because you got to admit, winning back-to-back road games in the playoffs that'd be tough for the Bucks too.
Oh, damn. Shit.
I finally got a question to you that threw you off.
I know, and I've been the a-hole co-host who's on a team for about 9 years in a row. So fair's fair.
Makes you feel kind of weird, huh? Live on the air, gotta figure it out.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, what's the issue?
It's a good question, though. Back to back, that's tough, dude. Especially when you know you had a chance to finish it, you know?
Yeah, because right now, all the momentum meter is in favor of Milwaukee, and if Cleveland still
that would be great if Cleveland did it. That's why Kevin Love came home for the Olympics. Oh, I see. I didn't even think about that. Man.
They're going to try out J.R. Smith and LeBron and Kevin Love. And
they just got to find Smith's shirt, and then we can play.
I think that would swing the momentum meter way back because you would have gone into the toughest home court of the playoffs and won with your back against the wall. Then I would throw the dice back on you, especially with those statistics you read about how actually good of a game they played last night, besides their little slip up in the second quarter. Even so, I mean, still statistically, that what happened last night wasn't supposed to. So, yeah, I would be pretty damn confident that if they win tomorrow, I would then go back and throw money on for 7. I don't think they will. BS. I would flip the switch and I would take Suns in 7 if they can pull off tomorrow, because I think tomorrow if you can walk into that zoo and pull that one off, like, then, dude, all right, we got house's money back here. Like, let's just go out for Game 7 and yeah, I know that'd be crazy. That really would be. That'd be a hell of a win. So yeah, I would say Suns in 7 if we're going that way. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stick to my pick. I'm gonna keep the Suns. I'm just gonna put them to Game 7. I think they're gonna do it because I just don't like. I can see Milwaukee. I wouldn't put any money on the Suns winning in Milwaukee. Don't get me wrong. Maybe sure. I'm just stubborn, Marshall, and I think there's no way they're going to beat them 4 straight times. It does bug me these last 2 that they didn't win. One of them, not bug me like as a Suns fan or nothing, but just bug me like kind of blocking what I'm thinking, what I'm saying though, because I'm saying this and I'm like, no, they can't win 4 in a row. Well, the Suns couldn't win one of these last 2 games that were totally winnable. So I'm kind of going against my point here, but they're just I don't know. I think that's going to happen. I think the Suns are gonna get the job done, and then they're gonna go home and win the whole thing.
That'd be a fun way to cap off this year.
And there, if it does go Game 7, there is a strong potential that either Thursday night or maybe Friday What's Friday afternoon look like for you, sir? Just to talk about it right now.
I'm good after 11:30, so I'm staying good on Friday.
All right. Well, we'll probably, because that 8:00 start does make it a little funkier, and a lot of people would just crash out. So maybe we'll do it Friday afternoon. If there's a Game 7, we'll do a Friday afternoon show and put it out for you guys. Okay. Any last words there, sir?
No, let's just hopefully enjoy 2 more good, fun basketball games to break down and cap off, like I said, what's been a very eventful, interesting season. Hopefully next year is a lot less injury prone. So on that note, again, as Chris said, they're tipping off for Game 6. It's going to be a fun watch either way. Again, I don't think the Suns bow down the first quarter, but after that first quarter, we'll see. So enjoy the hoops. As always, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate and love your support. I hope you're still enjoying your summer, July time with your family. Hopefully get into the sun. And also special prayers to anyone who had to. I'm a Nationals fan. I know it's baseball, but if you are, hopefully, if you were involved in anything last night, everything turned out okay, because that was a very rare text when I saw my Nationals were trending on Twitter. It wasn't about a baseball game. That was super scary. So that's just hopefully whatever happened can get moved on from, and sports make our country a lot of what it is. So that stuff like that's always just very scary to see, but I think everyone handled it as good as they could. So on that note, enjoy your summertime with your family. The boys are out tonight. Peace.